Hi everyone, my name is Youssef Farrag, and today I want to embark with you all on a journey of self-discovery and introspection. So to begin, let me tell you a little bit about my childhood, a story. لما أنا كنت صغير أنا كنت طفل عصبي. كنت بتعصب في كل المواقف، كنت بعيط على أي حاجة، وكنت يعني فعلا صعب على أهلي، ولغاية دلوقتي لسه بيذلوني على الحتة دي. وكملت كده actually لغاية حوالي 15 سنة. أكيد في حاجات اختلفت وتحسنت، but I never really changed until something within me changed. Something that did not just come with age, but with a change of thinking, a restructure of the way I approached my life and everything that I was faced with. Now, these grand words are really nice, but to actually explain what allowed me to achieve this, I need to start from the very beginning. The first concept, the first thought that I realized that allowed me to achieve the person or achieve what I wanted to be. فخلينا كده ناخدها خطوة خطوة من الأول خالص ونفهم مع بعض what really allowed me to become the person who I am today. So first of all, I want to introduce the concept of consciousness. There are two types of consciousness, external and internal consciousness. And they are quite different. External consciousness is simply the ability to perceive and be aware of your surroundings. It is the same type of consciousness that allows a gazelle to recognize that there's a lion over there, so I should probably avoid it so I don't get eaten. Or the same type of consciousness that allows your cat or dog to recognize you as their owner. And then there's another type of consciousness called internal consciousness, which is the ability to perceive and be aware of yourself, your own being, your own identity, the fact that you're alive. And no other animal or organism in the world has this other than us humans. But in fact, when we're first born, as newborn babies, we only have external consciousness. We can only react to the environment around us. يعني الطفل الصغير بيرضع وبينام. He doesn't really do anything other than that until they grow up a little bit. So they only really react to their parents and cry when they're sad and smile when they're happy. And then at the age of 4 years old, something very interesting happens. All of a sudden, they gain internal consciousness. They know who they are. They recognize that they're a human being. They can recognize themselves in the mirror. They're a person, an individual. And then later on in life, a little bit later, at around the age of 13, they gain something else, something beyond internal consciousness, a layer deeper, something called self-awareness. And self-awareness is different in internal consciousness because it's not only just being aware that you exist, it's being aware of who you are, your identity, your culture, your values, the things that make you who you are as a person. And by naming them, identifying them, recognizing them, you are described as being self-aware. So for example, let's say I'm someone that does not like broccoli. A self-aware thought would be that I just simply know it. But then there's something else on top of that called metacognition, which is the final thing, the cherry on top, the tip of the iceberg that allowed me to become who I am. But the word itself is actually a portmanteau, يعني كلمة معمولة من كلمتين يعني, of the Greek word meta, which is beyond, or which means beyond or transcending, and cognition, which is a synonym for thinking. So it literally translates to beyond thinking. But it more so means thinking about your own thinking. Thinking about your reactions to the environment around you, thinking about your own thoughts. So let's use the broccoli example. Let's say I'm someone, and I know this, that I do not like broccoli. But if you're somebody that has metacognition, you'd be able to realize that, for example, I don't like broccoli because as a child, my mother forced me to eat it. And as such, now that I've grown up, I don't like it anymore. So now you've actually been able to ask yourself, you've become introspective and you've realized the root cause of your current behavior. Now to actually illustrate this, to show how it works in our real life, let's take a look at an example. Take a look at this. Consider it, take a few seconds. All right, now, there are two main paths your mind may have taken with this right here. You may have attempted to solve the equation, or your brain may have produced an answer, or not. And if you did solve it, there are a few different ways you could have solved it. You could have Solved it visually, you could have solved it on your fingers, or more likely, you just automatically did it. You didn't even think about it. You just saw it and your brain gave you the answer. And for those of you who didn't, maybe you weren't prompted to solve it, or your brain didn't see it as something that had to be solved. Now, regardless of how you reacted to it, it's important to understand that your brain may have taken a shortcut in this case. And for those of you who automatically solved it, it's almost as if you never even paid attention to the fact that you were solving an equation. It just produced the answer. And it's interesting because in your day-to-day lives, your brain takes so many decisions, takes so many shortcuts, things that get you out of bad situations to help keep things moving, to keep the day of the flow going, to get you out of tough situations. But it is these very mental shortcuts that your brain takes, these thousands of shortcuts and back alleyways that your mind creates that you really have to focus on, because they can often end up becoming oversights, loose ends that resurface and grow into larger problems later on in your life. And it's exactly why you have to focus on them, realize them, understand them, and be aware of them, and think about them. Now, to really illustrate this further, I want to look at something a bit more subjective. So this time, take a little bit longer, really allow yourself to become immersed into what you're seeing. So again, there may have been two paths you could have taken with this. You could have found meaning, your brain may have accepted the stimulus presented in front of it, and you found meaning in this painting, or you rejected it. You didn't find any substance in it. And again, regardless of how you did, some of you may have actively found meaning by trying to force it into a place where it may not or may exist. Some of you may have approached it more passively, allowing it to speak to you, to unravel its secrets and whatever may surface in your mind when you saw it. And then some of you may have not found meaning. Maybe your brain just doesn't react to these type of things really well. Now, these examples, while abstract, I think illustrate the exact type of thinking that you need to do whenever you really want to become metacognitive. It's this exact type of thinking, this exact type of self-questioning, constantly asking yourself why. Why did my brain force the meaning into this painting? Why does this personality trait never seem to go away? Or why do I really say these things when I don't really mean them? It's all of these whys that you really have to ask yourself so that you can actually gain insight into the person who you are and the reasons why you are the person that you are. Now, for this reason, you may have heard something from your parents, and for the parents in the audience, maybe when you were younger, you may have heard something that goes along the lines of هي دي الفترة اللي شخصيتك بتتكون فيها, your teenage years. Because it's true. By the end of these teenage years, you end up having a machine, something that with every input always gives an expected output. So, if you're someone who's been placed in an emotionally distressing scenario, you might consciously or subconsciously bottle up your emotions or lash out and blow up in front of everyone. And no mechanism is better than the other. It's simply your brain's shortcut, your way to get you out of what you've been placed into. So in my example, when I was a kid, and obviously I didn't know this at the time, I realized that subconsciously, the only way to get what I wanted was to cry and shout and make myself look bigger and stronger than I really was. And this applies to so many things in your day-to-day lives, so many issues that you may be facing, unique issues, only exclusive to yourselves, can be resolved and understood through this metacognition, through asking, and once you arrive at an answer, asking the root behind that answer to eventually get to the root cause that may have caused it. And only by actually realizing these root causes and analyzing them can you really understand why you became this way in the first place. Can you really understand why your behaviors are the way that they are? And only through asking yourself these questions can you really know what you have the power to change. Only through asking yourself these questions can you really be the change that you want to be. And only then can you become the person who you've always looked up to being and become the person who you want to be. And that is the power of metacognition. Thank you.